Latinai, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, according to your research, the economy this year in Zimbabwe is going to decline, decrease by 9.7%. I mean, most economies are struggling to grow in sub-Saharan Africa, but this sounds fairly serious.
Yes, it's no secret that Zimbabwe is in a recession, especially for this year, 2019. With a lot of headwinds, especially coming from the drought side and also limitations around, power generation. So it's quite appreciated. Even the Minister of Finance has put an estimate of 6.5% contraction for 2019, which shows some significant headwinds, but also they expect a recovery to happen next year, 2020, of about 3%. But really from that, I think in terms of consumer disposable incomes, we've seen a significant contraction. And some companies have actually come up with trading updates, mostly fast-moving consumer goods. And they actually put out news that volumes are actually down quite significantly. So that was quite expected, given, of course, the macroeconomic condition.
I mean, even Delta Corporation, which I know is a giant in Zimbabwe. I mean, they were saying that their lager beer volume's down 40 and 48% for the 6 months compared to last year. I mean, that's massive. And I understand some organizations actually closed shop for a while to check out exactly what was happening.
Okay, so if you then read through the report that we've put out, what we're trying to track really was what really caused this significant decline, because we're looking at double-digit levels of volumes decline. So you then look at what happened in around Q3 2018 in Zimbabwe. You find that currency reforms only started really around October, November, about. So there were a lot of distortions in the market, especially on the exchange rate front, where the official rate was pegged at 1:1, but we had a parallel market rate, that has to move to 5 thereabout. So there was a significant opportunities for consumers who actually take a dollar and in a way multiply it on the parallel market by actually selling it in RTGS dollars. And most of these dollars that were created on the parallel market we actually found their ways, especially in fast-moving consumer goods. So basically looking at your airtime purchases, food, things such as beer and cigarettes. So you find that when you then compare those high volumes growth rate to Q3 2019, you find that we are actually comparing a very high base. So as a result, besides the contracting consumer demand levels, there's also the effect of that distortion in the market.
And what effect is it likely to have on the consumer market? I mean, it's a fairly big sector in Harare. Have you worked that out yet?
So it's quite significant, and that is why if you then look into what the national budget for 2020 has actually put out. So really, they're trying really to boost productivity now. Recently, they've cut the overnight accommodation rate from 70% to 35%, really to assist companies to have access to capital, which is quite key. There's also been a lot of initiatives of coming up with venture funds that will then try and boost some of these SMEs, because there's a realization that in terms of aggregate demand, it's actually come down. So there's need really to come up with policies that support productivity and in a way then boost consumer demand.
What about the, say, tentative reintroduction of Zimbabwe currency? We had $2 and $5 notes appearing back on the streets at the beginning of last week. I've heard a number of things. People say they're not big enough to make a difference. I've heard there's also maybe even a black market that's sprung up around them. How is it affecting the cash shortage it was supposed to sort out?
I think nothing has changed much in terms of the cash shortages. I think what has probably happened is that there's been a lot of controls, especially around mobile money platforms such as your EcoCash and things like that. But really, in terms of controlling the cash crisis, it hasn't done that, because there's still a lot of shortages, so to speak.